All right, and we are here. Erica Shea, welcome to Seeing Other People and formally welcoming you into my life.
I can't believe, I've known of your podcast and of you for years now, and we've been Instagram friends forever, and here we are finally. So thank you. I'm really excited.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited. I feel like this is our first date.
Yes, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. I already know that there is a future
here. I'm really excited about it because it's just like a good first date is really important. So
yes. So obviously we're going to get a lot into dating and there's so much fun stuff for us to talk about, but I'd love to just kind of set the stage with like where you are in your life right now, how you ended up, talking about your life and many other things on the radio. And I know you also have a new podcast.
I do. So I actually started in radio when I was 17. I was just like a high school senior and my dad knew a guy. And I always told people like, oh, I want to be the next Ryan Seacrest, which comes into play in a moment. And so I started just like doing radio and working there part-time during my senior year. And then throughout college, I didn't really work in radio, but I was still in entertainment. And afterwards, I honestly, sometimes I'm like, I blinked and I've been doing this for 12 years of my life and it's really crazy. Mm-hmm. But I was producing in LA for Ryan Seacrest for the last 7 years and had always wanted to be on air. And then things just kind of fell into place. I used to have a podcast called Almost On Air. And that podcast kind of led to me and my former co-host both getting on-air jobs. So I moved to San Diego 5 months ago. And I'm like a third mic on a show here in San Diego. And it's been the most exciting thing because I'm finally doing what I always wanted to do. And that is great.
So incredible. And it's so funny because I was probably doing the same like types of internships and stuff that you were doing, but I was at New York iHeartRadio while you were in LA.
Yeah. And it's what I love about radio is I end up making so many friends around the country from it because it's this very unique experience. So I didn't realize that you were at iHeart New York ever.
Yep. Before I was in dating, I was in the music business and I never imagined that I was going to leave that. Yeah. In dating.
Isn't that a crazy thing? You're like, I work in dating.
Dating.
Yeah. But yeah. And then because I'm like on a radio show, obviously in radio, your breaks are 3 minutes. Like you have a very limited time to get your point across and to get your story across. And so I just launched a podcast called Oversharing, where I basically, if there's something that I wanted to talk more about that we didn't have time for, I turn it into a whole episode. And each episode is about kind of a different topic. And I've done, we're brand new. So I've done like closure, confidence, main character energy. There's a couple others, but yeah.
I love that so much. And it's great that you realize like, no, there is more you want to dive into about certain topics. And you're like, wait, like there are ways I can just go do that.
Guess what? Amazing. This is what we do. Like we can make that happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So moving into dating real quick.
Yeah.
What is currently going on in your dating life?
Honestly, the craziest dating story of my life is currently going on in my dating life. Do you want me to just go from the beginning of it?
Let's go right into it. Go from the beginning. Don't miss a single detail.
Okay. So I guess I'll say like the most recent any form of romantic thing I've been in that's been more than a single date was just like situationships. Like I would be like, talking to guys hooking up. It wasn't going anywhere. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. And so then I was like really, truly single for a while and I go to so many weddings. I'm not kidding. I'm at a wedding like almost every weekend. And it was starting to feel like this is never going to happen for me. Like it was starting to get like dark. Right.
And for everyone listening, how old are you?
I'm 29. So like in that age where you're definitely like, I'm still young. There's still time. And then also like, but what if there's not? And so I had this whole month ahead of me where it was like 2 bachelorette parties followed by 2 weddings, followed by like all this stuff coming up. And I was feeling like a little wobbly about it. Like I was like, great, I'm going to be like sad at some point. First bachelorette party, first night of it. Walk into a bar. We're doing a scavenger hunt.
What city are we in?
Oh, we're in Denver. So I live in San Diego. We're in Denver for this bachelorette party and walk into a bar. And we were looking for 2 things. We were looking for a guy to give us his boxers and we were looking for a man with a condom. And drinking, obviously, I don't fully remember, like, I know me and my best friend walked up to this guy And I don't know which one of us asked, do you have a condom? But those were the introductory words to this man.
Oh my God.
And he did have one, which was actually a plus because
Respect.
and the men in Denver would look at all of us and say, no, I raw dog. Like, I'm dead serious. So we were like, already we like this guy. I didn't think much of it. Our other friend, so my teammate, got his friend's boxers. And then we went on our way. We were like, oh, we'll text you. We'll give you your boxers back. But didn't think much of it. Went along our way. They were actually going to leave, I guess. And then they decided they were so invested in us winning, they came back to find out if we won. I then end up talking to this guy. We call him Denver Guy on my radio show. And for his sake, I will continue to call him that. So I start talking to Denver Guy and give him my number at some point in the night. My memory of giving him my number is very, very hazy, we'll say.
That's okay. The most important thing is that it happened.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
Totally fine. But it is funny because the message was like, because he wrote it, it was like, if I could walk 1,000 miles, I would see you tomorrow or something. Because I think the song was playing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would walk 500.
No, the Vanessa Carlton
1,000 miles.
Yeah.
Even better. Even better.
Yes.
Even better.
So, I go home that night, not with him. Like, I go home with the bachelorette party. And then the next day he texts me and he's like, if you guys go out tonight, I want to meet up with you. And so we ended up meeting up with him after dinner that night. And we had given him and his friend a penis straw and like a swirly straw. And I walk up to him when we met up with him and he pulled them out of his back pocket. Like, he had held on to them, which is like so God. Cute. This is where the story gets wild. We're like talking. My friends were like, it was like watching you fall in love. Like, I was just like googly eyes for this man. And at some point he's like, I want to take you to brunch tomorrow. And I was like, no, I leave. Like, my flight is tomorrow morning. I can't. And he's like, change your flight. So I did.
Shut up.
I changed my flight and I didn't know him at all. Right. But I changed my flight. We had like a 4-hour brunch somewhere towards the end. He's like, I don't want you to leave yet. And I was like, I bet I could change my flight again. And I did.
Oh my God.
And I finally left at like 10 p.m. that night. So we spent like 12 hours together. And we didn't really say like, oh, I'd like to see you again. Because we both were like, what are we going to do about this? But once I got back to San Diego, it became pretty clear that we wanted to see each other again. And so 3 weeks later, a month later, he flew out here and spent a weekend with me.
Were you texting every day? Were you FaceTiming? Like, what was happening?
Like, texting? Yeah, but he wasn't a big texter. It was like I would hear from him every day except for maybe 3 in that entire month. But it was like 1 to 2 texts. And then we would just pick up where we left off the next day. Like, it was not a lot of chit chat, 0 calls, 0 FaceTimes. Wow. And a lot of it towards the last 2 weeks was literally just planning his trip. So I literally at one point was like, you're real, right? This is like a thing, right? And he showed up. I mean, like, he got on his flight. He showed up in San Diego. We had an amazing weekend. He was supposed to leave Sunday night. Sunday night comes. He moves his flight to Monday night. Stayed an extra day. Yeah. And then that's where we are right now. So
wow.
Now we text every day, FaceTime call. Like, now, because I said to him the first night he was in San Diego, I was like, hey, by the way, after a couple drinks, I was like, why don't you text? And he was like, okay, need to text more. Good to know. I was like, I just didn't know you. Like, I feel like I didn't understand like who you were anymore. So girls and men, say exactly what you want from someone. Like,
yeah, I'm so glad you said that because that comes up probably every single week, whether it's in DMs, listeners sending in questions, or on an episode or AMAs, where people are so stressed over like texting incompatibility specifically. Yes. And I always share this one story where like I asked a guy to, like, are you a bad texter or do you not like me? And he felt so bad that that's the impression that I was getting. And overnight he became the best texter. And yesterday a friend was telling me that after on a second date with this guy that she was into, she brought it up and he left saying, I'm going to be a better texter. And we're 3 days into that now. And so far he's been a much better texter. And people just don't know what you want unless you
No.
tell them.
My best friend says men are puppies and you just have to
Have to
train them.
train
Like
them.
you just have to say like this matters to me and therefore. And this man, Denver guy, is the most proof of that. Like I said the texting thing doesn't let me get to like 11 a.m. without hearing from him. Like always hear from him in the morning and like will call me, will FaceTime. And sometimes I just have to be like, hey, do you have a minute to FaceTime? Because like, hello, I haven't seen your face in like 5 days. And then we end up on the phone for an hour. And it's like
Yeah.
you literally just have to be. And I think the difference is though, I'm at the age where I feel like confident enough to be like,
Mhm.
if it's not going to work, or if this is an issue, it's not going to work out anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like more secure in myself that I'm comfortable to be like, these are the things I need. But it's just like so nice that I learned in the last couple months that a man
Amen.
can respond
Yeah.
to like just being asked for something.
Yeah. And it feels so much better to ask and know
Yes.
either way if they can do the thing that you need them to do rather than to sit there in your own anxiety and self-pity and self-doubt.
Totally. Do you know your attachment style?
Well, I was the world's most anxious attached person ever.
Wait,
Um,
was.
was. And
That's a thing
then
that can change.
it's a thing that can change.
This is a huge relief. Okay. Great.
It's a thing that can change either on your own through a lot of work or when you meet somebody who, your relationship with them changes your attachment style. So I'm very secure in the relationship that I'm
Mhm.
in. When I met Jake, my boyfriend now,
Yeah.
oh my God, I was the most anxious person in the world. But because of how communicative he was with me,
Yeah.
it allowed me to feel really safe. And he was so open with like wanting to see me again and how he felt that it didn't even give me the chance to be anxious, which
Yes.
was crazy. And I'd never experienced that before.
That's so similar to how I'm feeling right now. I had one day recently where I was like, he hasn't texted me much today, whatever. And then I caught myself and I was like, okay, next time I'm in therapy, I need to like bring up anxious attachment style because I know I am that way.
Right.
But it's wild. Like I feel like the poster child right now for like when you think there is no hope, there can be hope and you actually can feel safe and secure with someone. And I told Denver guy this like on when he was here in San Diego. I was like, I've never felt so safe with someone and I've never felt so cared for. And it's like actually beautiful. Like I can't believe I'm like gushing about him in this way. He might listen to this and be like, "You're a nerd," but he knows. Like I tell him how I feel, so it's not like a secret. But yeah,
Well, you know what I think is so great about how much you guys are communicating and how, you're not afraid. Like if he listens to this, yeah, he might call you a nerd, but like you're
yeah,
open to him hearing these things that you're saying about him and how you're feeling. And you were open to expressing that you needed more communication. He was
hmm
able to deliver that. Like that is a sign that there is a potential like long partnership here because you guys are showing up for each other, you're communicating, and
right.
especially in a long distance relationship, like if you can't communicate, there's no point in even bothering.
No, there's not. And I actually was in, again, I've told him all of this. I was in a long distance relationship during the pandemic. It was an entire year without commitment, not on my behalf, but
Been there.
yeah, oh my God, it was like the worst situationship of my life. I was miserable all the time because it was like, not only was he not committing, if I tried to talk to him about like, hey, why aren't we serious or why aren't we official? And, hey, could we talk more, whatever, it would become a fight.
Oh my God, Erica,
And
why didn't we talk sooner?
I know you were in this. Like,
Oh my God, completely went through this.
was it long distance?
Yes.
It's the craziest thing. So I thought that long distance always meant like bickering. Like that was just like what the universe told me, right? Is like, sorry, your only experience long distance is like it's just like going to be hard.
Yeah.
And then in this new experience, I'm like, oh, it actually can be just as easy as long as you kind of set like a, hey, this is what I expect.
Yeah.
But wait, when was this relationship of yours? That was
I was in a situationship for 2-3 years with this guy who lived in LA where
okay.
like we'd talk on the phone for hours. Sometimes we'd fly and see each other for the
Right.
weekend and like stay with each other, whatever. And there was like no form of commitment. So that was one example. Another one, that the one that where like every time I'd bring it up, it'd be
Yeah.
like, absolutely not. Like, I told you we're not talking about this. That was not long distance, that one.
Okay, but
Um,
still,
but
those are
that was even
gnarly.
harder, I think, because it wasn't long distance. It's like, well, we're spending 5 nights a week together.
Yeah.
Why can't we?
What do you need more? Like yeah. And it's really it's just it's the stupidest thing. Like, when you're out of something, you can be like, it's not about you, it's about them. But like it always is. So
Yeah,
I keep that in the back of my head for like hopefully I actually never feel like that again. But if I ever
right.
were to feel like that again, it's like it's not you. Like it's just this person and the way they can't handle whatever's going on.
Yeah, and I wish I could shake my old self and be like, "Lana, there are much better people out there who would
Yes.
fight to be with you, not fight to not be with you."
Isn't it crazy? Like looking at my younger self and the things I accepted is like so sad.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. I'm like, why didn't my friends like yell at me? But also my friends would be like,
No, same.
you don't need to like put up with this.
I'd be like, "No, but you don't see the other side of it. You don't
Right,
know what
like
he
you don't
says."
get it. You don't
Yeah,
understand like the initial
yeah,
chemistry when we met, like all those things.
yeah.
But man, I think that I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm like, I don't know if this guy is the one, right? Like maybe. Oh my God. On our first, we call that brunch when I changed my flight to stay. We call that our first date.
First date, yeah.
On our first date, not only did I tell him or ask him if we were in love, also asked him if we should get married. So,
Why are we the same person?
like,
I
did
would
you
have
do this
done
with
the
Jake?
exact No,
Okay.
no, but I would have done the exact same thing in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I also told him, like, at one point, I just looked at him and I was like, I think I actually like you. Like, I think I legitimately have feelings for you. This is within hours of really knowing him. It's amazing that he's still around. But what was I saying? Something about like, oh, I don't know if he's one. I wish I could say
Yeah.
like, when because it is just such a different feeling of actually being like, oh, you care and respect for me. Like what? So
But you don't need to know. What you know right now is that this feels really good
that's
and you're
true.
really excited to see where it goes. And I think that's something that people get wrong all the time where they want to know right off the bat, like, is this going to work or it's not? And
That's true.
there is literally no way to tell. Yes, there are some signs if something's going to go in a good direction or in a bad direction.
For sure.
But it's so hard because we spend so much of those early stages like just wanting to know if this is going to work out or if we're going to get hurt or what. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, like just enjoy it.
Yeah, like what if we just take it for what it is and like the days spent good are like days spent good and
Yeah.
if they're bad then they're bad. I mean, I look back and I definitely have times when I'm like, why did I stay in that relationship or that situationship for so long? But at the end of the day, like there was something that kept you there and timing is what it is and like don't beat yourself up for it.
Absolutely. So I want to switch gears a bit. I know
Yeah.
you recently moved from LA to San
I did.
Diego.
Yes.
And one thing that I get asked about a lot from listeners is, somebody knows that they're moving or they're in their last year of school and they're not planning on staying in that city. How do they go about dating? Do they tell people that they're leaving? Should they not look for something serious? Should they not date? And also vice versa, like if they meet somebody who is leaving, this is something that I've seen friends run into. They're like,
Yeah.
well, do I proceed with caution? Do I go all in? And, if it works, we do long distance, or do I just avoid this potential heartbreak situation?
I'm one of those hopeless romantic people who my first thing I'm going to say is like never ever just avoid. Like you never know what's going to happen. You could meet someone tomorrow and they could be like, I don't care where you move, I'm down. Right? Like there's so many people in the world who are like, I'll go wherever. So, but for me, I say that, but I know for me, I definitely had like a almost like secret wall up with myself, and I was like accepting the bare minimum from guys. And so I would like hang out with guys or like there was like a little like situation trip thing again, but almost because I let it be that way because I knew long before I moved, I knew it was very likely. So it was a full like 6 months of build up before I left. And knowing I was probably going to be moving to San Diego. And I was really bad about just saying, who cares? Like, let's just like see what happens. So my advice is definitely just continue to live your life. Like if you meet someone out randomly and organically, don't throw it away just because you're scared of what could happen, right? The apps, I'm a little bit like maybe, that was the other thing. Okay. The apps I would say maybe take a breather from,
Mhm.
but a couple months before I moved officially, so maybe like 6 months or 6 weeks, sorry, before I moved my apps down to San Diego. And I actually went on a date pretty shortly, like within the first 2 weeks of moving here, because I had already like started talking to people. And it helped me just feel more like this is my city right when I moved here. So I actually do recommend that. Just don't do it too early, because at like 4 months out, I did it. And a guy ended up driving to LA to have a date with me. And then it wasn't a match. So I felt really bad. I
Wow.
know. I felt so, so bad. But we both had like fun. We just like, it's not like a romantic whatever. So it was fine. Um, but it is hard to see yourself that way. But I would say if you're in school too, just enjoy. Like, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
People are
I
malleable with their plans then
I
anyway.
I think to your point of, like, maybe taking a breather from the apps in the months before you move, I think that's also a really good way to just, appreciate the last few months you have left
Yes.
in that place and, not put so much pressure on anything and just enjoy. And yeah, like you said, if you meet somebody in person, like, don't hold back from it,
Right.
see what happens, but, focus on your friends, focus on going to the restaurants and the parks that
Yes.
you love and doing the things that you've always wanted to do and see what's waiting for you around the corner when you get there.
Absolutely. My last month in LA was one of the most fun, because it was like I said yes to everything. I was just like, I want to make sure I see everyone and do everything before I leave. And obviously, I can drive back anytime. Like, I was there 2 weeks ago. Um, but it's still, I think you're right. That time is super important. And also, taking a break from dating sometimes is really good. So
Uh-huh.
it's okay. Like, I know I felt at times, I'm like putting myself back in that mindset where it was like, this is just setting me back. But like, in a way, it's not. It was more preparing me to be happy and comfortable with the move and being quote unquote alone, and just like a little reset, like just a mental no BS from the dudes.
Yeah. What was it like, like in between going to all these weddings and feeling like you're trying to find your person, but then having those
Yeah.
doubts of like, well, will I never like what was your, I guess, dating life like? How often were you going on dates? Like what was the biggest, I guess, pain point for you? Kind of paint that picture.
The biggest pain point. Um, you know what's interesting? The thing that I like hyper focused on a little bit was, these are a lot of people who have gotten married in the last couple of years are like my dearest, closest friends. And the thing that made me the most sad was my future partner won't have gotten to experience this, like these celebrations with me, right? Like, I
Mm.
had to go alone to all of them, and they're people who I'm so close with. Which was definitely just like a way of the like sadness manifesting itself and like finding a reason.
Yeah.
Um, I was going on dates, especially since I moved to San Diego, over once a month, I would say, like maybe every like 3.5 weeks on average. And none of them stuck here. All of them were first dates that turned into, and actually a lot of them were first dates. And the guys would be like, I think you're really great. I want to be your friend. And that was hard. I kept being like, why do people want to be my friend? I literally just want to make out. Like, I just like
Yeah.
don't need to be your friend. um, and actually, often they would make out with me and then say that. And I'm like,
Yep.
what are
That's the
we
way it
doing
goes.
here? But I think
Like, do
that
you make out with all of your friends?
right, like,
Sure.
wow, this is so weird. But I do think that like men can sniff out when you really want a partner, and like when you're going on a date because you hope it is something long term, right? And I think that's a big difference with having accidentally met Denver guy. Is at that point I was like, I'm in another city. I was fresh off a family vacation where I wasn't even thinking about dating. I had someone else texting me like, "Oh, I want to set you up with someone." So like there was nothing in my mind going out that night being like, I'm going to meet someone. And I hate when people would tell me like it happens when you least expect it, but in some ways you have to just like let go of the hope, because I really think that men have an annoying like sixth sense where they're like, this girl's looking for a relationship, and even if they are too, they like can't process it the same way we can. And so yeah, I think that's what was happening a lot during that period of weddings, was like I was yearning for it because I was seeing how in love and happy these friends of mine were. And then I would go on dates and be like, I want to be in love and happy too. And it just like wasn't clicking. So the minute
Yeah,
I
it's like,
kind of
how do I
like
get from here where I am right now to there at the altar?
literally, yes. How do I get from sitting in this chair or standing next to you with the damn flowers, like, to being the bride? Yeah. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, it's going to happen when it's going to happen, but that's because I'm happy. You know, when you're unhappy, you definitely are like way more stressed out about it.
I think that's such a good point that you made about like when you met Denver guy, because like you were being your silly, fun,
We were being
carefree
insane.
self. Yeah.
I want to make that clear. Yeah.
Well,
Insane.
yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I understand that. But like your mind wasn't focused on it. So you were truly just being yourself.
Yes.
A drunk,
150%.
silly, fun, crazy version of yourself, but
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And I've had the ability to be completely myself. I think that might be another thing with like the dates I was going on in San Diego. I always felt like I need to like hide any insecurity. I need to make sure that I like present myself in this way that's like dateable and wonderful. And then it's like, ever since I met Denver guy, I don't care. Like he
Yeah.
asked for my comfort food the other day. I was like, oh, it's SpaghettiOs with meatballs. Don't you get it wrong. Like, you know, like it's just like, I don't care. I would never answer that on a first date. Guys would be like, you're 7, you know? So there's definitely something to just being 100% yourself, because like, do you want to spend your life pretending to be someone else? No.
Yeah, I think that's another huge part of it where there's so much pressure on a first date to,
Yes.
you know, come off a certain way and not say the wrong things and say all the right things and
Mhm.
make sure that you're, you know, being chill enough, but also funny enough and respectful enough, but
Right.
curious enough. And it's like, it's so hard and that's impossible to do. And the reality is, somebody is going to like you for you
Right.
or they're not going to.
It's like so simple, but we make it so much harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And it's like sad when you look back and you're like, why was I so worried? Like it was either going to be a yes or a no.
Yeah.
So,
And then we go home from the date and we like overthink every single thing that we did. And like, oh, he hasn't texted me. Is it because I said something like
right.
that? Or should I not have done this? Should I not have texted that? And I think the beauty of your situation is that it was so carefree.
Yeah, no, I wish I had video footage of the way my friends and I were behaving that night. Also I was
Ask
wearing
the bar to see security footage.
right. I'm like, look.
Like, we think somebody stole something. We need to see.
2 months ago, we need to go back. I was also wearing probably the most ill-fitting tank top of my life because it was like we were all matching. I had little
Oh my
pigtails in. Like
God.
there was nothing that was like screaming like hot girl. Like, and I respect him for whatever it was. It was like he was willing to just see also he was wearing 2 t-shirts because they had given him one at the bar and he put it on over his shirt. And he's like,
All right, so he was being a little crazy too.
like we both were disasters.
Living on the edge.
Yeah. Live crazy, wear 2 t-shirts, like you never know. But I guess also going back to like the dating before moving piece.
Yeah.
There is a chance when you're like doing all your favorite things in that city and like about to move, there's a chance that you're going to be in a very similar mindset and you may connect with someone. And as long as it's not holding you back when you move, I think that it's okay to like explore that option. I also was super hesitant to get into a relationship like upon moving so recently to San Diego. But long distance is actually great because he can do his stuff during the week and then, you know, I do mine and I still get to like learn my city. So that could be a good thing for someone just moving.
Yeah, I will say there are weird perks to long distance that you don't
Very
expect.
weird perks. Yes.
I remember I dated somebody for it was short, but it was still like an important relationship in my life, like for like 6 months, New York to LA again.
Yeah.
And
Wow. You love LA.
I really did. But here's the one thing about LA, all of my exes live there.
Oh, you know, at one point, so did all of mine, even from before I moved there.
Yeah.
So.
Guys I dated in New York moved to LA.
Great.
So I have a place in the world where I send all my exes to LA. I highly recommend that because I never worry about running into them in the street in New York.
That's
and it's amazing.
awesome.
But I remember being like really obviously like nervous for that. Like New York to LA, it's not a quick flight. It's a far distance.
Commitment.
It's a commitment. And I ended up realizing like, no, this is actually kind of great because like I'm busy, he's busy. We both can still focus on our lives and our friends and everything. And then when we see each other, like we see each other and it's great. And for a while being what, like 3 months, like I actually really enjoyed it and felt a lot more peace with it than I expected, especially with how anxious I was.
Yeah. And was that before or after your other like long distance situationship?
That was after. But
Okay,
this was
so you were
actually like,
aware of
you're
what
my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend. Like this was defined.
Yeah.
And this was this kind of similar situation where I met him on vacation. I was visiting a friend in LA, and she was like, "Oh, my friend thinks you're cute." And I was like, "Okay." And then we hung out for like one night at like the three of us at her apartment, and then she and I were going to spend the weekend in Laguna Beach. And that morning he was like, "I'm gonna come." And we're like, "Okay." So the three of us ended up having a little girls trip to Laguna Beach. He gets his own hotel room, and we ended up like really hitting it off, and like we made out like the one or two. I think we stayed over for like one night. We ended up like making out that night and whatever. We drive home and we were like, "Okay, like bye." And he was like, can I then we were like DMing. I didn't know if I was ever going to see him again.
Yeah.
It's weird. I've actually never told this story on the podcast.
Oh.
Didn't know if I was ever going to see him again. And on the plane home, he's like DMing me and like we're talking about things and like making jokes and whatnot. And he like asked me for my number over DM. And then we just started texting, and he started like FaceTiming me. And I jokingly said something about like, come to New York next weekend. And he had a business trip where he was going to Europe.
Oh.
And he changed his flight to stop in New York on the way back.
Like, also?
And just came to New York.
If
And then we were like,
they would. Like,
I have a really hard time with that
do
phrase.
you not like that? Wait, why?
I don't like that phrase. I'm anti that phrase.
But what, isn't it proof though? Like, he wanted to, so he did.
Sometimes people don't know that you want them to. Sometimes people like want to but can't. Like, I think there are a lot of exceptions to that, and I think it's very situational. But yes, in this case, like he wanted to see me, so he did.
Right. It worked out to be able to. I guess like the financial strain or like things that literally people can't do. I get that. But I don't know. I've had a lot of guys who just didn't want to. So like
well, that's true too.
Yeah. Maybe it's more the other. If they don't want to, they won't. Like they're never going to do it because they didn't want to, I guess, is like what it really comes down to.
That is true. If they don't want to, they will not. Yes.
The physical like rejection you just had to that phrase is actually hilarious. Like that was so unhappy for you.
If you guys aren't watching on Spotify, go over to Spotify right now.
Yeah, you just watched Alana like hate everything.
Yeah, it was like a very visceral reaction.
It was.
But
that guy, so he then stopped, and then basically you started dating from then on?
Yeah, so he came for the weekend, and then after that, we were like just FaceTiming every single day, like always talking, planning trips to see each other. And he just like asked me to be his girlfriend, and we were like, I guess we're just like doing this. And he's like, yeah, we're doing this. And it was great for about like a few weeks.
Yeah.
And then shit hit the fan with his job, and he had to be in like a different country every day. Long story. We're not going to get into that.
No, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Here's what
I will overshare to you offline.
Oh, yes. But here's the question for you. Because you were like, oh, he suddenly asked me to be his girlfriend. People keep asking me, because we're still, early stages. There's literally been 2 trips with this guy. People keep asking me like, well, when's it going to be official and things? And I'm like, that's not, for me, that's not something I want to happen not in person together.
Mm-hmm.
Was yours like a text or a FaceTime or a?
This was over FaceTime. He was sitting in his office, and he was like, he like shut the door to his office.
You're like, what?
I'm in my bedroom. He's in his office.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have a question. And then he goes and like shuts the door, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm nervous. And then he was like, I think he was like, are you my girlfriend? And I was like, do you want me to be? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm your girlfriend. And then I kid you not, I was living with my friend Jessie at the time. I'm like, Jessie, I have a boyfriend.
Oh my, isn't it like so?
Well, he was like still there. It was really like in his office over
Don't
video.
You ever feel like so juvenile when you have to be like, by the way, I have a boyfriend now?
Yeah.
Like, I have to like call my dad. Even Denver guy's not my boyfriend right now. I would say I'm going to go out there and say he probably will be, but a lot can happen.
By the time this episode comes out, we will see.
Yeah,
what
we'll
is
have an
going
update.
on.
But I had to call my dad the other day and be like, so I'm like seeing someone and my dad's just always so awkward whenever, because I have two sisters as well. And so it's like anytime any of us are like, hey, we're like seeing someone, he's like, okay, cool. That's okay. I hope he's nice. Like he just doesn't know what to say. But I'm like, I feel like I'm back in high school being like, well, there's a man in my life.
I remember my mom found out about my first boyfriend, I think because we became like Facebook official. And she was like stalking me on Facebook, which I like yelled at her for doing, which like, of course she was going to stalk me on Facebook. Middle school.
Yeah. Okay.
Like 8th grade probably.
Yeah.
And so she like found out about this guy and she was like, well, like what makes him your boyfriend? What do you guys do that's different? I'm like, I don't know. He's just my boyfriend. Like we maybe had kissed once, like nothing. Like he was just my boyfriend. And then again, my high school relationship, which was really like, I guess, serious. We were together for a year and a half.
Isn't that a weird thing? You're like, it was serious, but like looking back,
I mean, like we thought we were going to marry each other. Yeah. Like
you're like, I love. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember again, my mom found out on Facebook because I didn't know how to tell her. It was like, I don't know why those conversations felt so uncomfortable, but they were.
Did you have siblings?
I had two older brothers. I have two older brothers.
So I have two older sisters and an older brother. So for me, like I'd seen it all already. So it was so easy. I would go home to my mom and be like, what up? You know, got a boyfriend, whatever. But I can imagine. Yeah, that's also not how I talk to my mom.
Is that what you would do? You would go home to your mom and say, what up?
Literally, I've had 2 official boyfriends in my life. Like, I don't say it like that. But I do think, like, I can't imagine having that conversation as like a teen and you're like, I've never watched someone else do this. So
yeah. And I definitely didn't see my brothers like be open about stuff like that. And one of my brothers had a few girlfriends in high school, but they were all like in his close friends group and like we knew who they were and stuff. So this was, I don't know why it was so weird. But yeah, she found out about my high school boyfriend on Facebook too. She's like, who's Matt? I'm like, my boyfriend. She's like, why did I find out on Facebook? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
I don't know how to tell you. Has that gotten better? Was the last time telling her different?
Yes, I told my parents about Jake after our 3rd date. I mentioned I was like going on a date with a guy. And then after our 5th date, I mentioned like, yeah, like I'm seeing that guy Jake again. And they're like, oh, how many times has it been now? I'm like, I don't know, like a few.
Yeah. How long did you guys date before you were like quote unquote official? I'm sure you've answered this before, but
so we dated, we matched on Hinge in January.
I saw your like story recently.
Yeah. How funny
like,
is that?
Dying.
Well, it's so funny because my friend, mine and Jake's mutual friend, Helena, texted me out of the blue being like, it's so crazy how like you and Jake are moving in together and like thinking back to our conversations about him. And I texted you about him like months before that.
Yeah.
And so she was like, Alana, you need to do a TikTok on this. So in looking for the old screenshots of the text from months before when Jake and I had apparently matched before on Hinge, I found out that we had originally matched in March of 2020. Neither of us messaged each other. And in September, I texted her that I was going through my old matches and there he was. And I thought he was like kind of cute and we had never spoken. Yeah. So I figured I'll try sending a message. And I don't know if I sent him a text or not on the app in that time. I don't know, but I looked into it. She said he's a great guy. And I was like, okay, I'll message him. Don't know if I ever did.
Right.
Fast forward January, he matches with me. I don't answer. He messages me. I don't answer him. A week later, he follows up. And then I ask Helena again. And she's like, Alana, we just talked.
We literally did this. It's just crazy. So it's like he then also went back through his old matches.
We had matched again.
Oh, you had like unmatched.
Somehow we had unmatched and matched again. And he actually remembers, and I don't think this is correct. He thinks that he remembers being matched with me and that I had something in my profile about wanting to be an influencer. So he unmatched me. And I don't think that's correct because even now I'm fighting the idea of being an influencer. So I would never back then have admitted like, I want to be an influencer because I'm like allergic to that term.
Were you, I'm trying to think of timeline. I know you've done this podcast for a while. Were you doing it at the time?
I had the Dating Sucks podcast for Hinge from like April to
Okay.
July of 2020.
So in his mind, could it have said something about that? And he's like, that's an influencer.
Maybe. Or there
Yes.
could have been a picture of me doing something. That's so true.
Right.
And then I guess the second time around, I didn't have that on my profile.
So
But
he
yeah,
was
so
okay with it.
we started talking mid-January. Our first date was February. And then sometime mid-March
Yeah.
or like early March, I think he asked me to be exclusive. We had gone on 6 dates when he asked me to be exclusive, but it was over probably like a month and a half because I had gone away for a bit.
Yeah. Wait,
And
but like
then,
exclusive and boyfriend and girlfriend are different.
so I never understood the difference. I never understood the difference
either, but
okay. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
This is why I didn't plan this episode.
Yeah,
So I'm
no.
like, it's just gonna go.
We have so much.
I never understood the difference. In my mind, it's like, well, if you're committing to somebody, then you're in a relationship with them. If you're in a relationship, you're exclusive. If you're exclusive, you're not seeing anyone else. So that's a relationship.
Right.
When Jake asked me to be exclusive, I definitely wasn't expecting it yet. I was pleasantly surprised because, again, anxious Alana,
Right.
great. Again, he's upfront communicating how he feels. It's making me feel really secure. He was also working a job where he was working a lot of nights, including like weekend nights. So his days off were Monday and Tuesday. So most of our I would also like take work off on Monday to like go on a fun date with him.
Cute.
But knowing that he was working on like Friday and Saturday nights, or that if he wasn't responding to me at night, I wasn't worried that he was on other dates with people.
Right.
I knew, okay, he's at work. And I think that was really helpful for me in like feeling safe with him. And then he asked me to be exclusive. And I was like, wow, this is great because now like, yes, I already felt good. And I already felt like, okay, I don't think he's seeing other people. But now I know that he really is invested in this and, wants me to know that he's not seeing other people. And that feels really good to me. And so I think that is what allowed me to fall for him and to feel more secure and to feel more safe and to feel like, okay, this is a really good situation and this feels really comfortable for me. And I was then able to get to that deeper level. We started talking about deeper things. We started spending a lot more time together and involving each other in our lives, like meeting friends and talking about families more and stuff. And it was about a month later where I'm like, okay, he jumped the gun with being exclusive. When the fuck is he going to ask me to be his girlfriend?
Yeah.
And every day that we hung out, I'm like, why hasn't he? Like, it has to happen tonight.
Like
and then it wouldn't happen.
You.
Yeah. So finally, one day, I look at him like, are you going to ask me to be your girlfriend yet? Or what? Yeah. And he turns to me and he goes, I thought you were my girlfriend.
Again, men.
I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. But to me, this was the first time where I felt like there was a difference.
Because you almost weren't ready to be fully together when he asked about being exclusive.
If he asked me to be his girlfriend on our 6th date, I would have been like, I don't know that I'm there yet.
Right. Like, I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah. Like, I'm really liking where this is going, but I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, the whole thing is something that I think stresses a lot of people out. Totally. And I love that like you were the one to be like, okay, are we like, what are we doing? Because when is this airing? I'm like, because like where I'm at is I'm like, we might as well be official. Like, I don't know what I'm not waiting for anything, basically. So if you're listening to this and we are not yet, feel free.
Look, ready, Erica? You tell me when you want this to come out.
Whenever, I don't care.
No. But like, if like a few weeks go by and you're like itching and you're like, all right, like I want to drop the episode,
release the podcast.
Do it. Press the button.
I'm also one of those girls, and I like encourage all women to be this way. Like, I'm not gonna sit around and wait too long. Like on some level, yeah, and like I want to like let him make sure he's ready without me pressuring him. But also, I'm just gonna be like, so yes or no? Like, do I get to tell people you're my boyfriend, or do I have to be like, this is that guy I'm seeing?
Right, the guy I'm like flying to see.
Yes. And there's something really interesting about long distance, and I think you'd understand where it's like once money and extra time is being put into it, you really have to make a decision.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
And I think that's something that, I wish people could kind of take a page out of that book and be like, look, if this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And I feel like it's this question that like is forbidden.
Yeah. Especially for women to ask like, what are we doing? It's such an anxiety inducing thing.
And it shouldn't be, because you have every right to know what's going on in the
Literally your
dating
life.
situation that
Yeah.
you are in, the person that you are seeing, and, investing your time and energy and emotions into.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, like, it's like the what are we? Like the DTR, did you define the relationship? Like the
Right.
labels. It's like it should just be a conversation.
Right. And on some level, whatever works for you is what should work. It doesn't have to match like what everyone else wants in the
Yeah.
society, the world.
Yeah. But I think if you're feeling anxious about it, or if you're like, what the fuck is going on, just let them know how you feel and ask how they feel.
Right. It's every day, like when you break it down, it's so easy. It's so simple.
But it's so hard to do.
But somehow, yeah, it's like just trauma. I don't know. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you one more thing that I've been thinking a lot about. And do you listen to Tinks?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay. So she recently, in her episode that literally came out yesterday or something, she was talking about how she met a woman who was saying that men don't like super powerful, strong women.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would classify you as like a strong woman. And
thank you.
Has your boyfriend always been cool with that?
So supportive, so cool. And this is one of the reasons that I felt really like comfortable with him and felt like really into him, was right off the bat. Like, he asked me so many questions about the podcast, about what I was doing. Like, I was a month into the show and to not working at Hinge anymore when we met. And then he started listening every single week. And he was so invested, and like watching all the stories and answering the polls and talking about the guests. And I was like, great, like this is somebody who really supports me.
Right.
And I support him in everything that he's doing too. And I think, gender roles and expectations and all that. Look, if you're a guy and you really want to be like bringing home the bacon and the leader of the household, like fine, but not
You better
at the
have a really good job.
Right. But like, that doesn't mean you shouldn't still support the woman that you're dating and the things that she wants to do. Definitely. And I do feel like, we've moved like mountains in terms of getting there and progressing. Right. But I don't know. I haven't experienced that in my dating life where people felt uncomfortable because of what I did.
Okay. I have, which is why luckily not in this current situation.
Yeah.
But in the past, it's been guys being like, well, don't talk about me on the radio. Or like, I don't want anyone to know that we're dating. Not because they were like embarrassed, but like because of the radio thing. Yeah. And also because I think I have a pretty strong personality. Sometimes they just like couldn't handle it and felt the need to like out strong me. And it wasn't until you like step away from a situation like that where you realize like how bad that is. So
I think the difference in our situations might be that like being on the radio, it's like, who's listening to the radio? Their parents and their parents' friends.
That's true.
And anybody who lives in the
literally
community.
Any person in the city could turn it on at any time.
Exactly. Right. And I think that's the difference. And I would have guys ask me like, oh, are you going to like talk about me on the podcast? Are you going to write a meme about me? And I'm like, maybe, but I'd never say your name and I'd never say anything that you wouldn't feel okay with.
For sure.
And so I think the difference is like people would need to actively be following me or listening in order to access that. And with you and being on the radio, I think that is slightly different, where like their parents could literally hear about this horrible thing that they did.
True.
And whether or not their name was mentioned.
I was just saying, like there's no names, but right. Like if someone knows like they're dating me, then it's there. But it's such an interesting thing. And also I'm like, there are men out there who will support you no matter what you do. Yeah. So like
and those are the people you want to be with.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the good guys eventually rise to the top.
Yeah. But at the very end of the day, long day.
When you really think there's no one left, somehow they surface.
On a red eye and you had the craziest work day and you're so tired, but you've had so much coffee that you can't go to sleep. That's
when they'll say, hey, what's up?
How's it going? They'll say, what up?
Yeah. God, basically, like the fact that I'm a girl with hope and trying to give hope to other people right now is shocking. Like through my life, I've been like, gonna be alone forever, which is like bad energy to put out, by the way. Don't do that. So if I can change, anyone can change.
Anyone can. Well, I love hearing that, and hopefully this episode has given people hope. And trust me, like I was in that boat for so long too, and I live to tell the tale.
Yeah, here you are with hope.
Yes. Last question for
Yeah.
you. What is the best piece of dating or relationship advice you've ever received?
Ooh,
It's
man,
tough,
that's a hard one.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. Let me think
Coming
about
in
it
hot.
for a moment. It definitely comes from like my sisters. They give me a lot of advice. They're older, one's married. Actually, one's divorced. So, wait, one's married, one is divorced, but in like a long-term relationship now. And so she's learned a lot. And I think the best advice would be don't do anything because you feel you have to. So, like for her, she was like, it just felt like the timeline was that, of course, that person that I loved at 27 was who I should marry. And she's like, I mean, hopefully she doesn't care that I'm like sharing, but there was nothing wrong with him. There was nothing wrong with them as a couple. It just was that they thought that's what they should do, when in hindsight, they should have just grown up more and realized like they had a nice relationship. And that can be that, right? Like you don't have to marry everyone you have a nice relationship with. And because I was really having a hard time with timelines for a long time. And she would just constantly remind me, like, just it'll happen, but like you just don't do something because you feel like you have to right now.
Yeah,
So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's something I definitely worry about, being in the place in my life where a lot of my friends are starting to get engaged and married. Like it just seems like everyone's just doing it to do it now.
Yes. Yes. And you start to worry about, I mean, I don't actually really worry about many of my friends because the ones getting married have all been together for so long and like it's a real choice. But you definitely see people start to get engaged maybe on more peripherals. And I'm like,
right.
Are you sure?
Have you talked about things?
Do you know how you're going to act? Like, yeah.
Do you know what you guys want? Just little minor questions.
It's like when the younger girls from college get engaged. And I'm like, I'm just being protective, but like, are we sure?
Do you know who you are yet?
Because, man, the person I was at 26 is really different from today.
Yeah.
Even at like 25, 26. Yeah. Ugh.
I'm a very different Alana than 25-year-old Alana.
Right? Yeah. Blessed
Erica,
to be.
Thank you so much for being here. Where can everybody find you and listen to more of you?
Yes, my podcast is called Oversharing with Erica Shea. It's wherever you search for that. And then Instagram, TikTok, I'm at Erica Shea, which is ERICASHEAAA. Yeah, just 3 of them at the end.
You got it.
You got it. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. You'll have to come on my show sometime.
Oh my God, I would love to overshare.
Perfect.
More than I already do. Amazing. Yeah. To everyone who tuned in, don't forget to follow Erica. I obviously have her tagged in the show notes and on the Instagram story. And check out Oversharing and send this to your group chat. This is such an amazing episode. This is so fun. I've had an absolute blast. I know everybody can take away so much from this and laugh a lot. And if you have not yet given a 5-star rating and review, please do and share it on your story and tag us. All right. Love you guys. I will talk to you soon.